Hi everybody, and thank you for joining us today for our introduction to crowdfunding for sports organisations. This is one of our monthly webinars where we're actually joined by Sport England as well to talk about the wonderful funds that they have available. I'm just going to pop that one back there. So my name's Zoe and I'm part of the team here at Crowdfunder. I'm going to be walking you through the basics of crowdfunding and how it can be a really useful tool to raise money for your sports club or sports organisation. As I mentioned, we've been joined by Nadine Karoma from Sport England. She'll be talking through the funds that are available that hopefully some of you here today will be able to access and are eligible for, be able to apply for those through your crowdfunding campaign and access those additional pots of money. We'll take a look as well at some of the additional sports related funds that we have available on our platform. A little bit later on in the session, we'll also talk to Alex from England Boxing. He's going to talk about the wonderful Team Shoebox projects that he was a part of, and that's closed recently, really successfully. So he'll be able to talk you through his experience, what he found easy, what he found challenging, and some hints and tips on how you can go about making the best of your crowdfunding campaigns too. We have allowed an hour for this session. That does include a Q&A at the end as well. So please do make use of the chat box, which you should see on the right hand of your screen. Pop any questions for myself about crowdfunding or about the fund, or of course to Alex about his project, and we'll field those as we go, but we've got time at the end if we can't get through everyone's questions throughout the main body of the session. Okay, if you do find that you have any internet issues, if you find that your internet access drops, for example, then please do just press the refresh button, which you should find at the top of your desktop by your browser bar, and that should bring you straight back into the live room. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Nadine. Hi Nadine, how are you?
Hi Zoe, hi everyone.
Lovely to see you. So you're going to talk us through the funds that are available from Sport England, aren't you, Nadine? And there's two funds that are currently working on the crowdfunding platform. So if you wouldn't mind just walking us through those, I'll just pop up a slide for everybody.
Thanks, Zoe. So thank you for joining us today, everyone. Hopefully you're going to pick up some invaluable tips on how to run a crowdfunding campaign. And I'll just quickly outline how to access the funds that we have available. So our first available fund is our 7.5 million lottery fund called Active Together. And this was launched back in May 2020. And the key focus of this fund is recovery, reinvention, and building resilience. So typical projects under this fund could cover essential works, general maintenance of a facility, or coping with the increased demand for activity as a result of the pandemic, and also now sort of navigating the cost of living and energy crises that we're going through. Through Active Together, we have supported over 600 plus campaigns, and we have plenty of budget left. So we're looking for even more clubs and organisations to support. Our second available fund is our 7 million lottery fund called Places and Spaces. And through this fund, the key focus is inspiring participation, bringing people together and diversifying audiences, all in the name of the Commonwealth Games that were held last summer. Typical projects under the Places and Spaces Fund could include creating a welcoming or accessible space for all, improving an existing facility to encourage new people to get involved in an activity, or possibly creating a new place or space that will provide opportunities for people locally to you to get involved in activities. And both of our funds are available across England with match funding of up to 50% available to a maximum value of £10,000. And as I've said before, you're going to learn some invaluable tips. But I also recognize that this is probably your first kind of deep dive into crowdfunding. So there's plenty of resource and wraparound support available. So please do tap into this as it can really help. And I'll pass back over to you, Zoe, to explain things in a bit more detail.
Thanks, Nadine. And we'll go through those wonderful kind of resources that people can make use of further into the session as well. And you're right, there's a lot available, isn't there? And support from yourselves for projects when they go through the application process. You guys are brilliant at making sure that you're letting projects know exactly what they need to do to get that approval, and we'll go through that again a little bit later. Would you mind sticking around in case we get some questions coming through about the fund?
Absolutely.
Brilliant. We'll see you in a little bit. Thank you.
See you later. Thank you.
So I have popped some links to those 2 Sport England funds into the chat box. I will put links in there for all of the different things that we're talking about today. So feel free to click on those, look at those in your own time. This session is actually being recorded as well. So we'll be able to send a replay link to all of you after the event. So you'll be able to watch back in your own time and with others you want to share this with too. So just going on to talk about some of the other sports focused funds that we have available. We also partnership with Sport Wales. So we have the Sport Wales A Place for Sport. And this again is a 50% match fund towards your target, up to a value of £15,000. So this fund is looking to support clubs or community organisations that are looking to create, enhance or redevelop sports facilities for the benefit of the community. So if you are based in Wales, it's definitely a fund for you to look into. I'll pop a link to that one into the chat box now. Bear with me 2 seconds. And then we also have Sport Northern Ireland. So again, if you're located in Northern Ireland, this is the fund for you. You can receive up to £5,000 to help your sports club, your sports organisation build back better. So this match fund is a 50% match fund. However, there's a slight caveat with that if if you are in an area of high social need or a rural area based on the index of multiple deprivation, then you could actually receive up to 60% of your target. It will, of course, be that £5,000 maximum value, but it's definitely worth looking into this fund if you're in that area. And then we also have partnered with British Cycling. So this, if you're a cycling focused project, you might be looking to develop a pump track, for example. You might be a multi-sport use facility where cycling features as well. Then you might want to consider applying for the British Cycling Places to Ride fund. This again is a 50% match fund towards your initial target, up to £15,000. So the Places to Ride programme is looking to support projects that are developing or improving their existing cycling facilities with the hope to benefit the community, so bringing more people into cycling or providing better provisions within the community for cycling. I should mention as well, as you can see here on the slide, that with this particular fund, it is set to close for applications on the 19th of February. So if it is something which you are looking into that might be a good fit, make sure you get those applications in before Sunday, the 19th of February, so just a few days away. So do go and take a look at all of the different funds available, all of the eligibility criterias, and if they are a good fit for you, you can apply for more than one fund. So for example, if you happen to be, let's say you're at a skate park in England, you've got provision for cycling as well, you're looking to develop your facilities and it's going to benefit the community and obviously those that are already using your skate park, you may be eligible for Sport England as well as British Cycling. So do make sure that you apply for every fund that you think that is a good match for your projects, because you can receive pledges from multiple funding partners. So you may get supported by more than one of these partner funds. It's a quite a simple process. It takes around 10 to 15 minutes. Your project page will get matched with our funding partners because of our amazing software on our crowdfunding website. And then when you see a good match pop up for you, make sure you do fill in all of the relevant information. So how to go about applying. When you're setting up your page, you will let us know the basics. So you'll tell us where you are in the country, you'll tell us about your organisational structure, so whether you're a group of volunteers or a constituted group or a not-for-profit, maybe a CIC or a charity. You'll let us know this in the basic stages of putting your page together. You'll also have a whole section dedicated to extra funding. So here you need to let us know who you're going to be working with, so who's going to benefit from your project, and that's the demographic of your community and those around you. And then you're also going to let us know the potential outcomes of your project as well. So that's going to be potentially, of course, increasing physical fitness, but that could also be increasing mental well-being, for example, reducing loneliness and isolation. Think about all of those wonderful additional benefits that there are to taking part in sports in some way, whether that's team sports, whether that's coming and being able to individually use something like, you know, a bike track or something that you are able to provide. Think quite broadly about those wonderful ripple effects of taking part in your particular sport on the community and the wider community as well. Once you've filled in those tick boxes, that's when the computer system will generate those match funds for you. They will show in your project dashboard. So your project dashboard is where you can manage every aspect of your crowdfunding campaign. It's a wonderful, wonderful area within our platform. You'll be able to apply for all of those extra funds there. And as I mentioned earlier, it's a really stripped down, really basic application form. Takes around 10 to 15 minutes per application. You may want to have those answers saved on a separate document, a Word doc or something, so you can copy and paste them over if you're applying for more than one fund. And our sports funding partners in particular really will look at your crowdfunding page as well to get more information about who you are as a club and those wonderful, you know, rewards that you might be offering, and we'll talk about that in more detail, but to get a real insight into you as an organisation and a club. So do make sure that you are really confident and happy with how engaging and wonderful your project page is looking as well. We have had a question come in from Ian. Are we able to apply to both Sport England funds? So with that one in particular, and I'm sure Nadine will answer this one a little bit further on in the session too, but when it comes to the Sport England funds, it would be one or the other. One is aimed at kind of capital costs predominantly, which is the Places and Spaces Fund, and then you have the non-capital fund, which is the Active Together. So if you were to apply to one of them and Sport England thought you would be a better fit for the other fund, they will shift you over to that fund and actually say, we think you'd be better suited to this one. You wouldn't be able to receive both in conjunction, but if you apply to one and it's not the best fit for you, Sport England will communicate with you and say, maybe you might actually want to apply for this one instead. So just to give you an overview of how the extra funding works and how you can actually receive that, as I mentioned about your page being really nice and together before you put in those applications, I would always recommend that you put those applications in for our sports funds, especially kind of Sport England, ahead of going live with your page if you can. So while you're still in draft mode. So you've put a nice amount of planning into your page, you're happy with how it looks, you're really confident with how engaging it's going to be when you finally do go live. And at that stage, you're going to apply for any of those extra funds that you've been matched with. The reason I say this is when you receive that approval, it's a really brilliant thing to go out to your community with and say, here we are, look at what we're doing, we're crowdfunding, we've already got support from Sport England. They're going to match us up to 50% of our target. Please get behind us and help us raise what we need to secure the money. It can be a really brilliant motivator to have that in place before you go live. The other reason being that if you put in an application and actually Sport England think they love what you're doing, but your page maybe doesn't quite fit what they're looking for, or the campaign needs a little bit of work, you have time to make those amendments with the support of Sport England before you go live. It's a lot easier to do all of that ahead of time. You can edit your page and you can tweak it once you're live, but it's a really nice position to be in, to know that actually everything's ready to go and you have that approval in place. So you've applied, you've been approved, and now you go live with your crowdfunding campaign. You will need to go out to your community and you will need to raise 25% of your initial target yourselves from your crowd. And when we talk about your crowd, we're talking about your supporters. So that's your community, your club members. So raise 25% yourselves from a required amount of supporters. And again, when we talk about supporters, we're talking about individual people with their own banking footprints and their own email address. So just to clarify, if there was, for example, a couple who had a shared bank account but separate email addresses, they would still only be counted as one donation because it's come from a shared bank account. So they have a shared banking footprint. So really you need to be thinking about meeting this first milestone for the required supporters from lots of individual donations and individual pledges. And you can see how many you would need to achieve from this little table at the bottom. So let's say you have a target of £10,000 that you're hoping to achieve. You would need to raise 25% of that from at least 75 individual supporters before it will release the Sport England pledge. You've hit the first milestone. You've had at least 75 supporters donate. You've reached 25% of your target. At that point, you will see on your page, Sport England pledge onto your campaign. They will pledge their, in this case, let's say it's £5,000 because they're doing half of your target. And that will show into your target percent raised as well. And Sport England will become one of your supporters. At that point, you turn back around to your crowd and you start shouting about the fact that you've had this brilliant pledge from Sport England. That will again re-motivate the crowd and get everyone behind you to help you reach 100% of your target. So overall, you will be raising 50% from your crowd, and then Sport England would have given you 50% from them as well, equaling 100% of your target. Once you get there, once you're at 100%, you have secured all of the money raised, including that Sport England pledge. If you still have some time live on your crowdfunding campaign, you can, of course, continue to fundraise. We always recommend that you set something called a stretch target, and you can do this at any stage when putting your crowdfunder together or even after you've gone live. Your stretch target is for all of those wish list things that you would love to add into your project delivery, but they're not a necessity. So it might be that if you were to continue raising money, you could get a better version of the equipment that you were hoping to buy, or you can extend and develop more of the area that you were hoping to, or put on more of these wonderful sessions that you're hoping to deliver for the community. It gives your supporters an additional goal to reach for. It gives them a reason to keep giving to your page once you've hit your target, and it can be a really wonderful way to overfund your project delivery. So always think about the minimum that you're going to need to make your idea or your project happen, and then plan to overfund it with a stretch target. Excuse me. So for some of you here today, and I know we've launched straight into the funding and how it works, but to, again, go straight back to basics, some of you here might not have used crowdfunding before as a way of raising money for your club. You might not be that familiar with the idea of using a rewards-based platform either. Some of you may have used other platforms such as Just Giving, which is commonly used for fundraisers. And we know that charities and not-for-profit organisations are maybe quite familiar with that form of fundraising, which is a donations-only fundraising approach. Crowdfunder UK enables you to actually add rewards onto your crowdfunding page. So a reward is a benefit of some kind in return for a financial contribution. What that enables you to do is really connect with your supporters and connect with your community. It's a way that you can give something back to say thank you for their support. So that might be coaching sessions, that might be sponsorship that you'll be able to offer to maybe the corporate sector in your community. But it can also be things that aren't directly linked to your sport and your club. And we'll look a little bit more at rewards a little bit further on. I just want to take a little check into the chat box here. So we've had a question from Andy. Any extra funding partners in Scotland? We do have some extra funding partners in Scotland, yes. Not sport specific, but I should highlight as well that, as I mentioned earlier, you can receive pledges from multiple funding partners. Always to take a look at things that you've been matched with that aren't necessarily sports specific, but will potentially like the look of your project because of the work that you do within the community and the overarching aims that your project is hoping to tackle. So for example, in Scotland, we're working with various local authorities. Local authorities may well be very keen to get behind a sports club or sports organisation that's having a real positive impact within the community. So always take a look at those that you've been matched with. If you wanted to take a look overall to the different funds that are available both nationally and regionally, you can have a look at our extra funding page. which I'm popping into the chat box now. That's got all of our partners listed, and you can see them, as I mentioned, nationally at the top or by region as you scroll down. This one in from Hayley. Sorry, not sure if I heard right. If your target is £10,000, do we need to reach £10,000 before we get the extra funding amount pledged? No. So just to reiterate that one, Hayley, if your target is £10,000, ultimately you would be raising £5,000 of that yourself, and £5,000 of that would potentially be from Sport England as a 50% of your target match fund. So just to pop it in its simplest terms, you raise 25% of that 10K, Sport England pledge £5,000 to your project. So you've raised £2,500, Sport England pledge 5, suddenly you've raised £7,500 on your page, which looks amazing. You go on to raise the shortfall, which is £2,500, and then all of your money is secured. So the match is based upon your initial target. You have to raise half of your initial target if you've been approved for a 50% match fund from Sport England. Hopefully that clears that one up for you. Ooh, let me pop myself out of the way here. I'm right in the way, bear with me. So Crowdfunder UK, as I mentioned, is the UK's leading rewards-based platform. We have raised to date, it's looking closer now, I will get the exact numbers, but we are over the £274 million raised towards projects. We see around 300 projects adding a day onto the platform, and that's everything from charities, personal causes, businesses, so for-profit and not-for-profit, and of course sports clubs as well. So you can always take a look at the different projects that have come before you. We always think it's a great idea to go and actually explore the platform and see which sports projects within the similar sport to yourself have achieved similar targets, have had that support from our extra funding partners as well, and see if you can take inspiration from what's come before you. There's a huge amount of choice when you look to explore different projects. See what resonates with you as a potential supporter as well, and what you find engaging. Sports do crowdfund incredibly well, and we've seen all sorts of different sports come through the platform, from like speed skating through to snorkeling, synchronized swimming, korfball even we've had last year as well, which was a new one on me. But we do know that, of course, by nature, you are a group of competitive people. That's why you love playing sport. Competitive with yourselves, competitive with others. Harness that and use that as almost like your superpower to put your crowdfunding campaign together. You know that you've got a captive audience as well through your club members. Make sure that you're bringing everybody on board for the journey. So reach out to those around you. Make sure you've got a team of people that can assist you in actually putting the crowdfunder together and running it. If you can, potentially run a fundraiser linked to your crowdfunding campaign, and we'll talk about that in a moment, where you can actually bring club members along for the ride and they can feel as if they've got some kind of, importance in the actual fundraising themselves. You can really have fun with getting people behind you and involve them in things like the rewards and things that they might be able to offer. Everybody's got other skills as well outside of playing the sport that they might be able to offer up as part of a reward for your campaign. So enough about the kind of basics of crowdfunding for a minute. What would be really brilliant, I think, now is to hear from somebody who's been there and done that and knows exactly how it feels to be in your shoes right now. So I'd love to welcome Alex from England Boxing to tell us all about his brilliant campaign. Hi, Alex, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Thanks very much for inviting me on.
Of course, thank you so much for being here. We can see the statistics here on the slide. So just to give everyone a bit of a rundown, Alex ran a really successful campaign recently for Team Shoebox. They raised just over £20,000 from a whopping 173 supporters, which is massive engagement. So well done you. And you actually received £6,000 towards that from Sport England as well, didn't you?
We did indeed, yes.
So would you mind telling us a little bit about your project, Alex?
Yeah, so basically my day job I work for England Boxing as the club support officer for the East Midlands, Eastern Counties and a bit of the home counties, but this project was actually with my own club. So for me, it was really good from two perspectives, because one, obviously our club's going to benefit in terms of raising the funds, but two, I can get the lived experience of actually running a project to then help other clubs, which is obviously why I'm here today, I guess. So with our club and our project specifically, our gym's quite small as it is at the moment. We're literally bursting at the seams, and we're desperate to move to bigger premises because, cost of living crisis. We're struggling to fit as many people as we can. We don't want to put the prices up because we're boxing, and we don't really do that because of the demographic that we serve. It's a little bit counterintuitive to what we serve. So basically we need larger premises, and we need to raise some funds to provide us with that block of money that we can then put down on potential larger premises. So that was the nuts and bolts of the project, I guess.
And what I guess drew you towards crowdfunding? Did you have experience of doing crowdfunding before, maybe donating to a crowdfunder, or was it that hook of maybe the Sport England extra funding? Like, what was that kind of draw to using this as a platform as opposed to something else?
I'd say at the moment that the fund fits really well with what we were looking to achieve. So in terms of we're trying to move to larger premises, there aren't that many funds that I guess the criteria behind this one fits our brief very well. So for me, that worked really well. We also originally, I remember sitting down with some of the guys on the committee, and we were saying, we've got signed up around 350 members online. If we could get 200 of those who are active to donate or fundraise £100 each, then we can easily achieve this. Now, we probably overestimate or underestimate that. At the time, we thought, that'd be quite easy. Probably wasn't quite as easy as we first thought, which we'll go on to. But we got there in the end through different means that I'm sure we'll discuss too. So that was the original thinking. But the criteria fit really well for the project and the brief that we had, really.
Amazing. And you mentioned there that there is always a few hurdles, I think is the best way to put it. Some of them are anticipated, some of them I think come as a slight surprise, things that you might have thought would be slightly easier, like you say, than they were. What were those difficult things? Was it kind of rallying people around you to really kind of get involved?
I'd say so, yeah. I'd say it's getting the message across to the members that we're all in this together. It's a crowd. That the clue's in the title. We're a crowd and we're funding together. So it's what I was trying to do was rally the members to do, as you said, do the fundraisers on behalf of the gym. So we had some really successful options with that. We had one lad did a sponsored spa. So it was one of our professional boxers. So it gave even my girlfriend had a go at sparring a professional boxer, and it was a sponsored spa. And we had another lad did our club show. He did donations to choose his ring walk music. So obviously everyone went for really stupid options and who had a bit of fun with it. So it's things like that work really well, where it kind of piques the interest of your members, and people think, oh well, yeah, I'd like to choose a silly song for my friend, and that's why I'll donate. And those things really work well. And I do think that the extra fundraisers were a really good way of doing things. In terms of challenges, it's I guess we had a few. What you've got to do is you've got to plan around your sort of calendar, your gym calendar. So one thing that didn't help us is half of our gym ended up, because we're an amateur and professional boxing gym. Most of the key players in our gym, the head coach and everyone, had commitments out in Las Vegas for a professional boxing fight. So that happened quite early in the campaign, and obviously all the key people that would be driving the message were away. So that was an initial barrier. But then equally, we also had one of our amateur club shows right in the middle of the campaign, which was a real great opportunity to then fundraise. So again, other ideas that we had were on every table that we sold ringside, we had a printout. And again, using things a little bit engaging, it was a printout of our head coach's face on the "We Need You," the World War II kind of recruitment campaign, and we had that there with the QR code. Everyone scanned it and everyone donated. So it's trying to engage and be, I guess, use the kind of the gym's personality to engage people. Be creative.
It's really, really important, and I think it's something we talk about a lot with crowdfunding, that people are more likely to get behind people than they are necessarily the idea. It could be the best idea in the world and really important and really impactful, but if it's completely faceless, it's really hard to resonate with it. So by putting yourself in front of a camera to make a video for your project, or by putting your personality out there with promotion, it obviously paid off, didn't it, in the long run?
100%. It is. It's building that narrative around the project. Everyone. People do understand that. Boxing does amazing things for people. It literally does transform lives. But it's creating the narrative around the project, and showing the people that this project's going to benefit. If you can show that, and you can illustrate that in the way that you share things socially, or using the internal tools as well, like the updates function, I found really, really good, because you're building that crowd, and everyone that's pledged is obviously someone that's bought into your project. So then if you use the updates regularly, and we even did like a World Cup sweepstake as well, because it coincided with the World Cup. So there was little things we could do there, and it's not just going out externally through your socials and everything. It's the internal update function was brilliant, because they're bought into the project already. So yeah, some of those tools were great too.
Really good advice. And yeah, I've mentioned the project dashboard for everyone that's here today. So through the project dashboard, you can post an update to your page, can't you? And that shows on the page, but it also gets emailed out to everybody that's supported you so far already. So it's a great way to, as Alex mentioned, making sure that you're keeping your crowd along for the journey and bringing them as part of the whole process, because they're your advocates. They've already bought into what you're doing. So they are really invested in the whole process. We've actually had a couple of questions come in specifically for you, Alex. Are you happy for me to jump into the chat box for a minute? So this is one for you saying, was the funding towards buying a large premises or renting?
So we're looking to, there's two options really for our gym at the moment. We've been trying for quite a long period of time to get in touch with our local council around accessing a community facility and taking that on for them. So that's the ideal option, because if you can do that, then you can potentially secure premises on a peppercorn rent, and the costs are a lot less, and we could put the £20,000 raised into probably refurbishing that property or those kind of costs. Whereas if we're looking at commercial, looking at renting, lease, it would be a long-term lease we're looking for really on anything. But if you're looking at doing that with a commercial property, you're probably looking at the funding that we've raised covering a large proportion of the upfront cost for that. So yeah, it depends. The ideal scenario, and again, this is another benefit, I guess, of being involved in the crowdfund, is the support that Sport England and the team at Crowdfunder have had behind the scenes in, saying, well, actually, if you need any help with a survey on a property or anything like that, then, we can potentially help, or we can point you in the right direction. So just by being engaged with Crowdfunder, Sport England and this project, the support that we've now got in securing premises, that's an added benefit as well. So yeah.
Thank you. That's really, really good answer for that one. We've had one come in from Paul as well. And this is kind of the other end of the spectrum, I guess, to where you guys are. You guys are quite cemented within the community. But he's asking, if you were a new start boxing club with maybe only around 20 supporters to start with, what advice would you give, or what would you have done to raise funds through Crowdfunder? I've got a Crowdfunder take on it, but I don't know if it's something that, any ideas that you might be able to impart for Paul on how to engage maybe a slightly wider audience that aren't specific to the club?
Yeah, I would. It's a completely different scenario to what we have because of the numbers involved. But I would say largely it's similar themes. So really, it's look within that 20 people membership and look at the skill set, look at the networks that each individual person has. So one thing that I kept saying repeatedly in terms of rewards and attracting rewards and even sponsor pledges as well was every single person in our gym gets their hair cut somewhere. So why can't you speak to your barber, speak to your hairdresser around potentially a reward based there? And then that's something that even if you haven't got a large crowd yourself, if you get those opportunities out to a larger network, so maybe advertise them externally, and which is going to reach bigger eyes, potentially through social media, or get in touch with your local paper or radio and those kind of things to get those rewards out there. That's something that's going to grow your project. So it's thinking within your membership. So haircuts, barbers, garages, the kind of services that everyone uses. If anyone's got any particular skill sets or occupations within the gym, it's looking within that and then growing it. But then to get the message out there, it would be looking all the traditional methods, your social medias, your radio, you're potentially getting on TV or these kind of podcasts, all sorts of things. Just be creative with it.
That's basically the crowdfunder answer too. So you've just completely nailed it. Yeah, exactly that. So you're looking internally to what people can offer you, but also think about that wider community and how can you connect maybe with different organisations which would actually really support what you're doing. You know, we mentioned all of those wonderful benefits of, say, boxing and the impact on mental health, you know, the positive impact. So are there different organisations that are focusing on improving mental health, well-being, different things? You know, go and speak to different gyms as well. Is there people that might be able to, could you offer some taster sessions at your boxing club for local gym members? You know, think about how you work collaboratively as well to build a bigger audience. And then, yes, ultimately you've got those things where they'll shout about you to a much wider audience. So local radio, local press, blogs, all those kind of things too. But all the resources on how to do that is included within our platform as well, that you can access for free. So do make use of that, and I'll make sure I pop the links in a little bit later. And then just one more from the chat box for you, Alex. This is from Mark. So this is one I would ask you anyway, but what is your number one lesson learned from setting up your campaign? Kind of your takeaway, I would do that again, or maybe I wouldn't do it that way next time. You know, what was that learning experience? I
would say it's a tricky question because there's lots of things that I'd probably do differently and everything, but it's very, very important to plan and actually plan your campaign as though you would any sort of marketing campaign. You need to plan around key dates, as I said earlier. But I'd say it's also, don't take on too much yourself. Make sure that you have a support network around you of people. I was fortunate, I have got a support network, but it can never be large enough. I guess it's kind of, being what I do for a living, I'm the club support officer, so I kind of do this day to day. So I guess it's probably a little bit easier in some ways because this is my occupation is to help clubs with these types of projects. But equally, if you then take on too much yourself, then it can become a bit all-encompassing. So I would say, yeah, definitely get support from within your club, your membership, the committee, all those kind of key decision makers in the gym or in the club to support, because that is strength in numbers. The whole concept of crowdfunding is strength in numbers, and that's true for the crowd as well, as much as it is for the people driving the project as well. You need support.
Amazing, thank you. Yeah, you're so right. It's it can be quite an undertaking, can't it? And I think it's good to have different sets of eyes on things, you know, to feedback and lean on people that can give you a bit of a pep talk when maybe the donations have, you know, stopped coming in for a few days, and how you can be reactive to that. So make sure you do have a team of people around you, definitely. Even if it's
yeah, the other thing with that actually as well is just if it's only one person driving the project from within the club, the message is only coming from one person, so you're going to reach crowd fatigue quicker as well, because it's going to be like, oh god, he's messaging that WhatsApp group again. Like, whereas if you've got 2 or 3 or 4 people messaging, you know, on a sort of rotational basis, and it's a slightly different person or dynamic within the club, then that message, everyone within the gym has their own kind of role, and they're listened to in certain instances more. So the message coming from certain people is also key, I'd say.
Amazing, thank you. And you mentioned we've kind of gone through how you kind of sourced rewards and things, you know, reaching out to club members, making sure you're talking to different areas of the community and networks and things. You had some brilliant rewards on your page. And I have actually shared a link to your project into the chat box. People can go and take a look at that. If they look at the supporters tab, they'll see the fundraisers as well. Apart from the financial raise for the club, what would you say have been some of the added benefits to going through the crowdfunding process?
So I would say that the biggest one that you would get is if you're seeking other funding post-project, then obviously we've got 173 supporters now for this project. So then when you're seeking other funding or future investment or sponsorship or anything like that, whenever it comes to, you know, this is bread and butter for funding, you've got to provide evidence of need and evidence of support and community backing for a project. Well, if you've done a crowdfunder and you've got 173 people there, and you can show all the analytics behind that and the people that are engaged, the demographics, everything, it's literally it's done your community consultation for you around the project. So yes, we've raised £20,000 here, but since then we've gone on to raise further funding for other projects that we're looking to build as well, and it's been a lot easier since we've done this. Equally, when our conversations with the council now, before we were just a boxing club with no money behind us, now we've got £20,000 behind us, so we've got a real, we've got more kind of credit, more sort of credentials behind us, I guess. That would be the biggest one. I guess it's that would be the most important one. I'd say also we're probably relatively well known in the community as well, particularly for our boxing. We've got very successful amateur boxers, very successful professional boxers. But what we do in the community, and the projects we do, the Parkinson's, the boxing in prisons, the kids boxing in the holidays for free school meals, everything. We're doing a little bit of everything, to be honest. But getting that message out there was a lot easier through this project. So I feel like our reputation has gone from being Team Shoebox, the home of professional boxing in Northampton, to now being, wow, look at those guys, look what they're doing for their community, and look what they're giving back. So I think that doing the crowdfunders had a real positive impact on that for us from a kind of branding and reputational point of view.
It's really amazing to hear. You're so right. I think it's such a great exercise in promotion as well as fundraising, isn't it? And awareness. People now know exactly who you are and what you do, which is wonderful. And that might even lead to some, partnerships going forward and some collaboration going forward within the community. And you're completely right when you talk about the crowdfunder actually helping you to access and open doors to future funding. We often recommend that people think about their crowdfunding campaigns as not just, we say it's a short exercise in fundraising, which it is, but it doesn't stop at the end of your crowdfunder. You can always keep going back and posting updates. So maybe when you guys secure that venue, you can post an update and people will get reignited about, that buzz of the fact that you guys are actually doing what they gave money for, which is brilliant. And you can use that link and share it with your local council or local, grant funders to help you along the way as well. Thank you, Alex, so much for some really brilliant advice and sharing your experience as well with us today. Would you mind hanging on as well for the end of the session to see if we get any more questions come in for you?
Absolutely. Yep, no problem at all.
Thank you so much, Alex. And we'll hopefully hear from Alex again towards the end of the session. Okay, so to jump straight back into the crowdfunding element, why do people pledge? So we heard there from Alex about obviously engaging with the community and keeping your personality as part of the whole campaign as well. There are two main reasons that people would pledge to your crowdfunding campaign. One is that they believe in you and they believe in your idea. So that's going to be where your core network, so your friends, your family, your club members, people that are already invested in the idea or the club, or you as a person, you as a group of project owners will want to help support you on your journey of crowdfunding. There will also be another group that are really interested in the rewards that you have on offer. And this may well be members of your wider community that don't necessarily have an interest in participating in the sport, but they can see the value in what you're doing. And actually you've incentivized their giving by offering a really attractive reward, which has resonance with them as a member of the community, not just to do with the sport. So Alex mentioned there about, the barbers or the local garages, putting rewards on the page that people would be purchasing in their day-to-day life anyway, and actually now they're being funneled to purchase it through your crowdfunding campaign. That's a really great way to bring people into the campaign and get them donating. You need to make sure that your page is really engaging. We've mentioned that a few times. So you will be prompted when putting your page together to tell us your story. So tell your crowd your story. We've actually got a template for sports clubs, which makes it super easy for you to be able to do this. We do hope that you will change these titles for the headings though. Make it something that's a little bit more personal to your club. But we want to know who you are. So who you are as a club or an organisation. Your community impact, so how and why are you important to the community around you? You'll go on to tell us why you're crowdfunding, what you're going to use the money for, and how people can help you. But do make sure that you are breaking up big bodies of text with really catchy headers, Pick out any key information in bold text as well, and do make sure that you're adding in lots of wonderful visuals, images as well. Think about how you would view a page. Even think about things like social media. At the moment, you know what it's like when you're scrolling through social media. Most people are quite short on time. It's things like eye-catching images and videos that are going to draw your attention. So try to avoid having huge chunks of text without breaking it up with images and bold headers and things. It's just a little bit more easy for your reader to digest. It's not as overwhelming, and it can really help to engage that audience. We've mentioned rewards a lot this session, and rewards are something which can really help to boost your fundraising, really maximise the amount that people are giving to your page, and also it is something which is a kind of prerequisite really for the Sport England funding in particular. So do make sure you have a really nice variety of rewards on your page. And that can be anything from, as I mentioned, that sponsorship. Maybe you want to have a quite high price reward for corporate sponsorship, all the way through to lower end price rewards that don't actually need to be that tangible. It could be something where you are giving them a little shout out on social media, or the club manager is going to do a silly thank you dance, and it's going to be videoed and sent out via email to all those that have said, you know, they'll pledge £5. But do go out into your local community, do make use of your network and all of those hidden skills or talents that those around you may have that they can actually gift to your campaign. And also the high street as well. You can see here, fish and chip voucher. Normally we do see a lot of campaigns come through with different discount vouchers and things for high street restaurants, cafes, shops. So go out and get networking. It's a really brilliant thing to do, and it's a great skill to have to be able to promote the club as well. We mentioned with Alex there about the fundraisers. So this is an example of what we call a multiplier project. So this is multiplying your fundraising ability. So when you set up your page, you can opt to become a multiplier as part of your campaign. What that does is it enables those around you within your community to click a button on your page to start fundraising on your behalf. And you can see here that Brixton BMX Track did exactly that. They had 23 individual fundraising pages set up by the club members. All of the money raised by those individual fundraisers and all of their supporter numbers funnel straight onto your main page as well. So it's a great way to hit those first milestones with the unique supporters and the 25% raise in order to unlock any additional funding. And it's a great way to just boost that engagement with the community as well. Do you have the capacity to set a fundraising challenge, for example? So in this case, the challenge was to cycle a certain amount of laps around the track, and lots of the junior club members got involved. And it's a great way that they can feel that they're a part of the whole process, especially if you've got youth teams and things that might not have access to a huge amount of disposable income, or might not be able to donate online to a crowdfunding campaign. They wouldn't have the capability to do that, no bank cards or anything like that, but they could do a running challenge, or something that the club are going to host, which might be a football match, let's say, and the teams have their own fundraisers, and you might be able to incentivize that. Whoever raises the most or whoever has the most supporters might receive a special trophy or badge from the club. So do think creatively about how you might be able to engage those fundraisers too. We've mentioned the support on offer. So we do host monthly webinars for crowdfunding for sport. We also have drop-ins that we run each week as well. And we have our Learn platform. So this is a really wonderful thing to use. We highly recommend that after this session, you go off and you log onto the Learn platform. The link will be in your follow-up email to go and take a look at. There's 4 separate modules: an introduction to crowdfunding, and then planning, creating, and running your campaign. They're really user-friendly little modules, lots of videos, multiple choice questions, that kind of thing. But it really does give you all of the information to be able to confidently put a crowdfunding page together and run it successfully. So please do make use of that when it comes through in your email. We've covered off quite a lot today, and we've had some brilliant questions coming through as well. So I'd like to welcome back Alex and Nadine, and we'll get through as many of these questions as we can before the hour is up. Hi guys, thank you for joining me again.
No problem at all.
Hi Zoe, no problem.
Hello. I just want to mention as well that if anybody does have any specific questions about the fund to do with their eligibility, or they just want a bit of advice from Sport England, you can contact them directly. You can see the email address on the slide here, and I will pop it into the chat box. But for now, it would be great to see if we can get through as many of these questions as we can. So bear with me and dive straight back in. I think we've had some going straight into the questions section. Okay, so can individuals raise money by doing a sponsored event and the sponsors give to the campaign? So I think, yes, I think we've just covered that one really. So in essence, if there was a campaign up and running and they had opted to become a multiplier, you could even set up your own fundraising page as an individual. You wouldn't be asked for any of your bank details, any of your financials or anything like that. It would all be linked directly to the main campaign. It would just be a really nice thing for you to be able to share with your potential crowd so that they can support directly onto your own little fundraiser. Another nice thing about the multiplier option is the main project owner. So in this instance, let's say Alex with his campaign, he could actually choose within his project dashboard to allow all of these little fundraisers to have access to the main rewards as well. So that's a nice thing to be able to share with those that are fundraising on your behalf, that people can actually claim those rewards via a fundraiser. So a nice thing to think about, but yes, absolutely individuals can do that. But that's probably the best way, I would say, for transparency to do it, because it can actually really add those supporter numbers and those donations straight onto the main page rather than it being in one lump sum. So I would definitely advise that. Would you agree, Nadine, in terms of keeping those kind of unique supporter numbers up and the money towards the milestones?
Absolutely. So we've seen lots of campaigns where the multiplier method has really helped boost a project. So yeah.
Amazing, thank you. And we've had this one come in from Alenka. What was it? Yeah, Alenka. Our fundraising is for 2 projects. One seems to fit under one of the Sport England funds, the other under the second. Should we clarify the amounts we're trying to raise for each project? Well, it's probably worth, and I think we touched upon it earlier, mentioning that if it's 2 projects, as long as they're for very different things, is that really kind of the idea, Nadine? If they were, it's tricky, isn't it, to run them in conjunction with one another, because essentially it's the same crowd. So they might want to think about raising for one and then maybe coming back and doing another a bit later on. What would be your take on that one?
Yeah, if it was kind of like a phased project, we would suggest doing a crowdfunder possibly for one, and then a few months down the line doing another crowdfunder for another. But if it's without knowing the details of the project, it's possible that both elements could be considered under active together. But what I would say, send us an email at internalcaf@sportengland.org with all the details of the project, and we can provide some more detailed feedback on that.
That's amazing, thank you. Nadine, would you mind popping the email into the chat box?
Yeah, I will do that now.
Thank you. Okay, so this one in for Rebecca. Is there a time limit for the crowdfunding? Is that set by the club or by the platform funding stream? So in terms of running a crowdfunding campaign, the optimum amount of time is to have it live for around 4 to 5 weeks. The reason being, and Alex mentioned it, is crowd fatigue and also project owner fatigue. So it can be quite an undertaking. And what you don't want to do is kind of keep bombarding people with the message that you're crowdfunding for a prolonged amount of time, as it might not necessarily yield the best results. It's better to have a short campaign with some really varied content and a great narrative attached to the project, and you can keep it all kind of quite varied for that amount of time. It's quite achievable within 4 to 5 weeks. If you know that you've got events coming up within your sporting calendar and actually you can really make use of a bit of a longer period of time, that's fine also. You can actually extend your project. The Crowdfunder platform enables you to set your project for up to 10 weeks of a live project campaign, But we would only really recommend that if you've got a strong plan for promotion. And maybe you've got some events coming up, as I mentioned, in the calendar. You're trying to tie it in with things that are going on outside of the crowdfunding campaign. Just be mindful that when you launch a crowdfunding campaign, your community gets all excited because you've done the legwork and you've created a buzz around it, and people will donate. But you might find that it drops off a little bit in the middle and it can quieten down. Did you experience that, Alex? That maybe you had a bit of a lull?
Yeah, we did, and as I say, we had to extend a couple of times as well. So it's and particularly around, I said with the barriers we faced with some of the events, and there were barriers, but equally there were events coming up that worked. So that's why we could extend. So as I say, myself and Dean, we're constantly in touch with each other all the time. We were saying before the call, it's great to finally meet face to face, but it's really good in terms of the support and that communication, because if you stay in touch with Sport England and the crowdfunding guys, then yeah, absolutely, they'll support. As long as you can explain why. The same with the project. The why is the key. Why do you need to extend it, and what's the reason behind it? As long as you have that plan in place, then yeah, it works really well.
Amazing, thank you. And then it does, you have that lull, don't you? And then you probably found as you were coming close to it closing, people get all they get interested again because they can see it's going to happen. Yeah. So do be mindful that you may have that kind of dip in the middle, and that if you do extend it for a length of time but you don't have a plan in place, you might just extend that period where there's no real engagement from those around you. So as part of the planning process, just have an idea of what's a good time frame for you. When can you launch and close your campaign so that it ties in with things that are going on around you as well? And always try and cover 2 paydays if you can with the with the campaign, because we all know that money's tight at the moment. But if you give people more opportunity to donate because they've had a couple of paydays within the live campaign, you might be able to captivate some of that potential disposable income at the moment as well.
When you look back, the analytics are very useful as well. It's probably worth mentioning. So when we found a huge spike, obviously, as you mentioned earlier, with the extra funding, when the investment went in from Sport England, that was a real spike in terms of people were like, okay, well, now we've got some backing. Now let's really push. And we saw a big spike there, then probably a little bit of a low. And then as we got closest to the end, it was a real push again. So yeah, it really does make a difference, that.
Amazing. Yeah, you're completely right. Use it as a motivator for the crowd. Once you get that pledge, shout about it and bring people back to the campaign, definitely. This one in from Ed. Is Sport England likely to support cycling projects after the 19th of February deadline for British cycling applications? Nadine, I'll let you field that one.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll still be open for all kinds of projects. So providing you're eligible, we'll definitely be able to consider you.
Amazing, thank you. This one in from Andy. This is probably for you as well, Nadine, I would say. In previous funding rounds from the Sports Council, they've used areas of deprivation as a criteria. Is this the case for the 2 funds from Sport England?
So as I mentioned at the start of the call, we have match funding available of up to 50%. When we look at it initially, it is based on where your club or organisation is located, but we have particular priorities as an organisation that we're looking at. So if your campaign or project is targeting one of those, then it's possible that you could be entitled to a higher percentage that your location might not have initially indicated. So yeah, we do consider location, but there are different factors and things in the background that we look at that can possibly override that. But the important thing is, regardless of where you're based, you are eligible for match funding.
Perfect, thank you. And I think that's actually answered Hayley's question from the chat box as well, which was looking at the criteria for how much of the pledge club might receive, and it's based on those factors that you just mentioned. Thanks, Nadine. This one in from Rebecca. Is there a time limit for raising the funds? How is that set and agreed? And also, if the club secures funding, is there a monitoring process in place? What type of evidence would the club need to provide to confirm a project is fulfilled? So it's kind of 2 sides of that one. So in terms of the crowdfunding element, we talked about the length of a project, for example. I should just mention that with the extra funding from Sport England, specifically, all of our funding partners have different criteria with this. So do check the terms and conditions. You would need to hit 100% of your target to secure that money. So do make sure that that target is nice and realistic. But in terms of evidencing how the money has been spent, Nadine, I'll pass that one over to you.
So for us, fundamentally, because crowdfunding is all about your crowd and engaging your local community, we kind of look at your crowd as a way of holding you accountable. So, for example, there's no need to send things like invoices in. Your crowd will essentially be a mouthpiece as to whether you fulfilled the projects that you wished when you started off with your campaign. And we do also have a post-campaign survey that we send out to projects we've supported, which asks a couple of questions and asks a few questions on your crowdfunding experience. So between the two of those things, that's sort of what we use as a way of monitoring.
Amazing, thank you. Really, really good answer for that one. We've actually hit the 1 o'clock mark, so we have completed our hour, and we've had some brilliant questions coming in, and I hope you've all had some really great information from obviously Nadine about the funds, and Alex all about what it actually takes to kind of run a successful campaign. Do you feel you need a break now, Alex? Do you feel you need a bit of a rest, or are you still very much in?
I always do, but it's we're on to the next one.
Amazing. So you're planning another fundraiser, are you?
Oh no, not just yet. No, I've got a press conference.
Well, thank you so much, both of you, for joining me here today. Some really useful information for everyone attending, and thank you to all of you for tuning in today. We will send through the recording and the follow-up email with all of the links to the resources we talked through today. If you do have any specific questions for Sport England, we'll make sure that we pop that email address in there as well for you. I'll pop a slide up in a mo, which is just the next steps for you guys. So explore the platform, take a look at who's come before you. Make sure you sign up to the Learn platform as well and work your way through those little courses, and then ultimately sign up to Crowdfunder UK and start putting that page together and applying for those additional funds. So thank you, everybody, and good luck with your crowdfunding campaigns.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, guys.